Welcome to the Music Licensing Podcast. I'm your co-host, Sonnet Simmons.
And I'm John Kleinbell. Each week we sit down with top professionals in the sync world to discuss their experiences and offer inside insights on what it takes to place song to picture.
From music supervisors to ad agency executives, from trailer houses to indie artists racking up licenses with their music, we'll be talking to all of the people who make the sync magic happen.
Music is the backbone of a successful film or TV show.
It's all about finding the right fit for the right song, for the right moment.
I think the key to success in music licensing is really building relationships.
If you're passionate about music and the business behind making compelling media, this is the podcast for you.
Join us each week as we dive into the fascinating world of sync and explore it with the people it takes to make it all click.
The Music Licensing Podcast, where business meets the art of storytelling in media.
Are you loving the information shared by our guests and hungry for more? Consider becoming a patron of the podcast. Our patrons get exclusive access to extra content from our guests each month. We have bonus content in our Patreon page that is only for our patrons. For $3 a month, you get this access and you help support us bring this podcast to you each week. You can go to musiclicensingpodcast.com to become a patron today and get extra access.
Welcome to the Music Licensing Podcast. This week I'll be your host, and I'm chatting with Los Angeles-based producer Billy Lefler. He's landed countless sync placements with his artists and worked with major publishers like Warner Chappell, Secret Road, and Position Music. We're going to dive deep into the world of a highly successful producer, as well as have a little fun with it. Without further delay, let's jump into the conversation. How you doing, man?
Good. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Can you hear me now?
Billy Lefler, amazing producer. I miss the Death Star so much. This studio that Billy's sitting in is a place that is dear to my heart. I've recorded many songs there and worked as a producer in the nights for a while there while I was living in Los Angeles. It's a pretty special spot. But you know, in terms of just what haven't you done in terms of working with cool indie artists, and you landed more syncs than you probably can even count at this point, which is, it's just a really cool thing I see people are already dropping songs in. So people really want to have your feedback on their music. But it's just one of those things where it's great to spend some time with you here. Does that sound good, man?
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, bring it.
Awesome. How are things going in Los Angeles?
Good. Things are good. I mean, crazy life, couple kids here. The commute really got me today. Traffic sometimes it's just tough. Yeah. But mostly it's good. Weather's good. People are okay. It's exciting town. You know, you must miss it to some degree.
I do. You know, that's actually a great question, because there's a lot of folks here that are not in what's considered quote unquote a music hotbed. So maybe for the folks that aren't in a music hotbed, maybe you could just talk to a little bit of what is one of the things that you love about being amongst people that are constantly gigging and really working hard, shooting music videos on, you know, finding ways to run and gun videos on Hollywood Boulevard or wherever to just get ahead and find a cool way to put something together in a low budget. Or even like people who have label support and are coming to you with budgets, good budgets, healthy budgets, and then going out there and really promoting this stuff. So I'm just curious, like what's maybe one insight that you could give to people who aren't in a music hotbed, what it's like, how does that help, or is there a challenge with that? Is it something, I mean, obviously you love Los Angeles because you've been there for like forever now.
20 years, I think 21. Or longer, I think. That's a question, John. I think, to me, I like it here because as a music producer, there are way less of us than there are artists. And artists, I feel like a lot of people move to Los Angeles to pursue their music career, right? A lot of the record companies are here. A lot of the licensing companies are here. A lot of the managers are here. So it's a musical hotbed. So there's a lot of people. You could throw a stick outside and hit a singer, which I've done, and you can hit them. But you don't have to be. I mean, you could produce or be an artist anywhere, really. You know, I just like it because of there's a lot of opportunities. Every day I wake up and you just don't know what's going to happen. But if you're a hustler and you really want to succeed, you don't have to move to a town where there's more of you, right? You could do it. You could do it anywhere. You could do it. A lot of it's done online anyway, right? You just have to, I don't know, maybe work a little bit harder. It used to be that I would just go out to, there was a club called the Hotel Cafe, and I would go out and just meet a bunch of artists. And then the next week they would come in and have a meeting in the studio. It was just, that's where they were. That's where the people that I wanted to work with music, that's where I would go to find those artists, you know? So it was just easier to meet people that way. But like I said, you could be anywhere.
Yeah, and you do a ton of collaborating online as well with folks that come to you from all over the world. And there's some difficulties with that can pop up too. So, you know, what are some of the things that you do in order to make that process? Because that's one of the things that, as a producer myself, it's just so hard to capture that magic that happens when you have people in the same room, vibing off of each other, creating something together. How can you, in a way, replicate some of that magic that happens in person over emails, over FaceTime, over all this stuff, Zooms, all that?
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, I'm very much a people person. If I have somebody in the same room as me, it's instantaneous feedback, whether it's good or bad, excitement, come play. It's just I don't think you could beat that. To me, being in the room with an artist is the best thing ever. Now, a lot of times we have to not do that. So you just try it's more of just, there's a lot of guesswork. Like, you know, if I'm producing a John Kleinbell song, which is, first of all, I would rewrite every lyric because they're just garbage to begin with. I would, you know, I would create like some sort of foundation of the track or the idea of a feeling and send it back to you. There's a lot of back and forth. There's a lot of time in between. So I prefer in person. I mean, there's ways to do it, but if I have an opportunity to be in the room with a person, I would pick that anytime.
It's magic, right?
Totally.
It really is magic. So getting to the magic of this, because everybody wants to know, well, how do you get syncs? Because it's a very real way to break through as an independent artist. But the thing is, and this is one of the things that you taught me, I've been very blessed to consider you like one of my strongest mentors in terms of production and writing and all that stuff. And one of the things that you taught me, totally blessed. And one of those things that you taught me that really stuck to heart when you told me it was that, you know, you really got to make music that you and the person or people that you're in the room with believe in authentically, full send, and then in a way, kind of who cares what the world thinks of it in a way. And that seems like in some ways when everybody's like, well, here's the secrets to sync. Here's how you get your placements faster and all that stuff. And it seems like that's advice that's really counter to all of these like tips and tricks and all of that stuff. So, you know, I'd love to hear your kind of explanation for how you have never been somebody that, at least to my knowledge, is like, hey, we got to make sure to do this like in this specific way so that it just neatly fits this box, and yet your cue sheets are just like full in ASCAP and all that stuff. So like, how does that work in terms of like balancing all that out and in a way, the way that you've kind of like not emphasized that at all in what you're doing a lot of the time?
I've always tried to make the artist happy, you know, and making the artist happy could mean a lot of different things. Maybe that artist really wants a sync. But licensing is very difficult. It's got to be great. Like, so to me, my licenses, the majority of them have been trying to record real artists as good as possible. Who cares about anyone outside of the room? I've said this a lot. And just making it as good as you can between you and that band or you and that artist. or if you're producing your own music, just make sure that you are 100% happy. Who cares what your roommate thinks? Or we want it to be is good. Like, I want to be so proud of this. Check it out. Because people, music licensing people, music supervisors, they want real music. They want real stuff that resonates with them. So I think that if you're guessing a lot, if you're like, oh, I hope that Target is going to really like this, it's just that you start to sound a little false. So, but I don't know. I mean, to me, recently I've had kind of a change of heart of my old way of thinking. And it's because of how the music business has been changing. I've always been I've had my nose up a little bit towards sync. I've been like, it's quick. It's like, I enjoy it, but there's been this, I don't know what it was. I think I just had an issue with it at the beginning because that was their goal, is to get their song in a commercial or TV show or a trailer or whatever. And to me, I was like, but you're missing the point. Like, that's not why you picked up a guitar the first time. And that's not why you started singing. And so you got to remember that. But now I'm kind of coming to realize that, I don't know. It is a balance. Like, if there's a project that I just started with a friend of mine, and it was, I think, one of the first times I said, we're going to make a bunch of money on this. That was honestly the conversation I had. I worked with this band. The singer was incredible. And I said, I have an idea. I've got a playlist that a certain licensing company was kind of looking at. Like, we want songs like this. I have that playlist. I said, also, this music is rad. Let's do a song like this for fun. We'll listen to it a couple times and then we'll go off and do our own thing. But we're kind of on this one song, I'm aiming 100% for sync. And we did it. And it turned out what we thought was really great. So then I'm like, okay, so now the next step, kind of even more important than the song, is the relationship with the licensing company. Because you do most of the time need a licensing company. So I approached one person from one licensing company. He really liked it. I already had a relationship with this person. So I just texted it to him. I said, what do you think of this? And he texted, he's like, I really like this. This is really cool, blah, 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 blah. And then he calls me right afterwards, so that's enthusiasm. Like, okay, this is cool.
Yeah.
He's excited about this one thing. So then I'm turning this into a project. It becomes, there's a band name. We're putting it together. And on this one project that I'm doing with this one person, I'm going full force, 100% sync. But for me, it's if I do too much of that stuff, I go crazy. I also want to record stuff that's probably never going to be a song, and I just care about, so there is a balance. But licensing is about quality of work, about uniqueness of work. Even though you're copying a vibe, you still want to stand out and take risks and not sound like a copy, and really have a relationship with somebody that's going to be able to pitch you. There's so many licensing companies. You can get lost in that, or not even responded to with those companies. And even if you get signed by those licensing companies, doesn't mean you'll even be pitched. So it is tricky. So it is about finding someone who is enthusiastic about pitching your music. It is interesting because I in the past, I haven't really pushed that hard for it. I would record someone and like, who cares? We want to make this as good as possible. And sometimes it would work. It would carry over on a television show or a commercial or whatever. But in this instance, I'll come back in a couple months and see, I'll tell you how it goes, but I'm going full turkey with this. Like, I'm going to try and we'll see. And I never do that. So we'll see.
And I love it. I mean, it's just like, F the rules. And then sometimes, like, heck, I'm just going to embrace all the rules and see what works for this, or try to marry those two things together. Like, bring all the originality. Like you said, you can't make something that sounds like it was written for sync, because people can detect that from a mile away. So you got
if it sounds false, or it's just got to be good, right? It's got to be good.
That's such a hard word, right? Good.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And the definitions of good when it comes to writing and production can be so subjective from person to person. So
it's got to be good for you. You've got to love it. You got to be able to, when you're finished with it, got to play it for somebody and say, I did this. What do you think? I mean, I don't care what you think, but this is great. I love this. Check this out.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you got to find your believers too. I think that was another point that you brought up that's really important. Whether they're people you're collaborating with, or especially when it comes to sync, you got to find who's your champions out there.
Yeah, your people.
Who are the people that are really going to be excited when they get a song from you, and to have somebody call you right away. I've had that happen a couple of times, and the thing is, it's like like you said, it's just an indicator of excitement, an indicator that they are going to bat for you, those kinds of things. So the more of those kinds of relationships you can build in your music network, the better, whether it's people you collaborate with or people who represent your stuff. So, I mean, that's all just dropping a lot of gems right there. Actually, what you were talking about, just that original inspiration that we all have for making music. We've all come from some place that sparked our desire to create music. And I'm just kind of wondering, phenomenal drummer, great producer and writer. Like, where did you start off?
Handsome
things. Handsome. Yeah.
Ish.
Yeah. Sure. Sure. Yeah. Handsome as well. So, all those things said, how did your music career actually get going? Where did you see a drum kit at some point? Was it a music video you were watching?
You mean when I was a kid?
Do that? Yeah. Like, what sparked things for you, and how did that kind of carry on into becoming a producer and doing what you do nowadays?
I'll keep it short, but it started off as I wanted to be a drummer. I just needed to be a drummer when I was a kid. It was probably MTV, right? That's all I wanted. So it started off with my love for playing the drums. My parents were very supportive. They bought me a drum kit, and having kids, like, there's no way I'm going to buy my kids a drum kit. It'll be just like, it'll be like the worst thing ever. But they were very supportive. I started playing drums. I was very interested in it. I did all that stuff in high school. I think we all do it. We were just into music, and I wanted to go to music college. I went to Berklee College. And then I moved back to Texas for a little bit. Then I ended up being here. So I was a musician or a drummer. I don't know if they're different, maybe, but I was, I love music. I played the drums. And at some point I just started to record demos. I mean, I'm a little bit older. So when I remember Logic came out, and guys that produced a band I was in, they produced this record. They used this program called Logic. And it was the first time I saw digital recording. And at that time it was digital mixed with tape, in both combination. But seeing those guys use Logic, and those guys leaving for the night, we stayed at the studio, and they would do a save as in the session and let me fuck around with that program and opening up reverb and being like, oh my God, be blown away by the technology of it mixed with music. And then I just got into that world. I started to do that, and I started to record my brother, anyone that I had a chance. I just wanted to record and write and just figure out how to do that, and I just kind of did it my own way. I didn't take those classes at college or anything. I just kind of figured out my way of doing it. And then I always I've been sort of a writer, but not a lyrical writer, but more melodic, kind of a partner type, a collaborator type writer. And I just started doing it. I had a buddy that was in the mix here in LA a bit. We worked together a lot, and it's just hustle, meeting people, begging people to work with me. The studio that I'm in now, I got in here very early, back before I knew how to do anything, but it kind of made it seem like I knew what I was doing, which helps. It still makes it seem like I know what I'm doing, which helps. And just that's all I want to do. But now I want to play golf a lot more, but still I do music too.
Well, the thing is, it kind of leads into the next thing I was going to ask about, which is it's interesting, when you start out, it's like, well, who can I help out? Who can I work with? And you're coming from that perspective of like, I got to hustle. I gotta meet people. I gotta sell them on the idea of coming in and giving it a shot, working with you, seeing what that's like. Versus now it feels like more, and I think as producers establish themselves, it can feel a little more the other way, where people are coming to you because you have a track record because of all that stuff? Is it one of those things where before you have a track record, you really do need to focus on the hustling aspect of it, the getting out to the open
Totally.
mics?
Hey, indie music creator. You do not have to live in a major city to have success in sync. You do not need to be young. You do not need to spend a ton of money. You can create amazing music and get it to the right people with a little bit of community support and accountability. That all exists within our community, Sync Society. We bring in a licensing agency every month that we partner with who gives us sync briefs. You have the opportunity to write to these and submit to one of our samplers. This sampler is sent to 15 to 20 sync agencies. 60 to 100% of that sampler every month is signed by sync agencies. That means people in our community are getting representation every month in sync. They are creating amazing music. They are meeting supervisors every month. They are getting song feedback and they're getting support and peer support. You can live anywhere in the world. You can show up and be here and feel seen for the gifts and the music that you create in this world, and then see some results in real time because of the music you're making. You are invited to join us. Come on over to 2indie.com/sync society. Okay, and now back to the episode.
You just have to make good work. You have to, I have a lot of meetings with younger producers and they always ask me, how do we get paid to do this? And I'm like, well, I think you can't focus on that right away. You have to just make great sounding records. You just have to do that and make people get people to come to you. Like you have to create a reason for people to come to you. And then, you can go from there. And I find it very tricky to be an artist and record yourself. I find that's a hard thing to do, to do all of the stuff, right? To mix, produce, master, write, sing, play every instrument. You would get overwhelmed. I think I get overwhelmed with that. So my best work is collaborating with people. And I love to work on songs that already exist. That's my favorite thing. You bring in a song, it already exists. Like, okay, how can we do this? How can I help you make this song as good as possible so you have this song for the rest of your life and always be proud of it, always love it. And if it gets a license, a plus for sure. But, my goal is to capture it, how you were feeling on that specific day about that song that you wrote the month before, and just capture that and make that as good and honest as possible.
Were you always good at working as part of a team, or is it something you kind of had to learn how to do over time?
I learned. I had a couple of different people at the beginning where there was a lot of elbowing, it was just kind of tricky. I prefer to be, I actually did a record recently where I was one of two producers and it for the most part, went really well. I'm now a lot better about saying, no, I want this, let's do this. And even though I think, because I don't know, no one ever knows. But if I think I don't know if that's John, I don't know if that part is that great, or I don't know if what you're performing there is that great. Now I'm more like, okay, that's what you like. I'm going to like it too. And I'm going to help you make that as good as possible. As opposed to say, give me the guitar. I'm going to do this because I'm better at it. Because sometimes being technically better at something doesn't mean it's going to be better for the music, But it took me a long time to ease off a little bit about that.
That's a good point. Well, those situations where somebody turns down the reverb and while you're sitting right next to them and things like that, those kinds of situations could be a little tricky to navigate, but
I just don't care anymore. I just don't. I'm easy. Yeah.
That's a great, attitude to have with things. It really falls in line with, just in terms of what Sonnet and I try to foster in this community as far as letting people take their seat with what it is that they're doing and to honor the creative contributions that people bring in, because there's a lot of value that comes in. And sometimes, your idea might be great, but, something else is on the table right now. And I love your attitude about, let's see if I can shine that up as best as I can. But anyways, yeah, no, this is just really great stuff. You've really covered a lot of stuff that's important to sync, but also talking about a lot of things that are important to just new up and coming producers and things that are important as you're building your skills and as you're building your resume and continuing to level up. The best way to get in touch with Billy, how can people find you online?
You can go to billylefler.com. There you go.
Right,
it's on there.
Great. Yeah. But Billy does a lot of really awesome stuff, and it's just been a real pleasure to sit here and have a chat.
Yeah, guys, thanks for letting me do it.
A special shout out to Daniel Lim for providing this incredible music to our podcast, and Kurt Hunter, our editor.
Big thanks to our patrons on Patreon: Holger Willebrandt, Carolee Garrison, Daniel Trilk, Ted Meyerson, Willow Speak, Mark Stone from the Dirty Country Band, Lisa Dunn, Gabrielle Tarrin, and Claire Heaton. We can't do it without you. Thank you so much for your support.